Let's get this show on the road. Ladies and gentlemen, please grab a seat. We've got a great program here. Really excited about the folks that are going to be talking today and about all the groups that are here. So first of all, welcome, welcome. I'm Terry Tamminen, the President and CEO of Alta Sea. In case you didn't know, you are here at Alta Sea Berth 57. And for those who may be new, Alta Sea is a nonprofit that has taken over this peninsula here, going all the way to the south, of historic 110-year-old warehouses. And thanks to many of you and the port and the state and a lot of generous donors, we've raised money to renovate 180,000 square feet of these historic warehouses just to the south of us into a modern blue economy hub where we're going to be continuing our work in ocean education, in workforce training, and very importantly in the research and development of the blue economy. So when we talk about that, we mean aquaculture on land and at sea to develop the future of food and fuel and pharmaceuticals and all the great things that you can harvest sustainably from the ocean, helping to restore the ocean. We're also working on renewable energy with things like wave and tidal energy. I mean, everybody's excited about solar and wind, but think about the constant power of waves and tide. If we could harness a fraction of that, how quickly we could decarbonize our power grid and all the things that we're plugging into it. And then underwater robotics and exploration, and that's some of the things that we're most excited about, is having all of us become ocean explorers. Every one of us really is, because 70% of the planet is covered by ocean, as you know. And so we really are an ocean planet, not a land planet. And more of us have to understand how the ocean is dependent upon us, and we are very dependent upon it. You know, I'll just tell you a very quick story about myself. When I was a kid, at 10 years old, living in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, about as far away from the ocean as you can get, my grandparents brought us on a 3-day train journey to Los Angeles, and we saw Disneyland and Knott's Berry Farm and the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and went to the studios and all those kinds of exciting tourist things you do. But you know what I remembered most of all was going to Santa Monica Beach the very first time I put my toes in the water, and I was hooked. And that's something that's so magical. That's part of what we're trying to do here at Alta Sea, is get everybody hooked on the ocean and understand what an incredible resource and ecosystem it is for all of us. So thank you all for being here. We've got lots of volunteers. Everybody who is a volunteer or staff member of Alta Sea, would you raise your hand right now? Raise your hand, look around, everybody that you can see. First of all, give them a great big round of applause. I want to thank them for setting all this up, and of course all the great work we do every single day here, and wouldn't be possible without all of our volunteers who dedicate so much of their time and energy and resources and good humor to make all of this possible. And we're excited that you're here particularly for this open house, because in just a couple of months we're going to be opening up Berth 58. That's the one just across the little plaza here to the south of us. That's going to be our public engagement center, the first part of our renovated 100-year-old warehouses. So you're going to have a chance to come and see all of that. Be very exciting. We're going to move out of here. You know, we crammed ourselves into this last of the old school wharfs and berths in order to make space for the construction to happen over there. But then we're going to move back into this nice renovated space. I think our next open house will probably be in 58. Yes, I'm seeing a yes. So that'll be exciting. And May 29th, you might want to put that on your calendar. That's going to be a press conference open to the public where we will formally have a grand opening of Berth 58. So a lot of great, yeah, go ahead, yeah, why not? And before we get started with the program, I also want to just recognize all the amazing groups that have tables and exhibits here with us today. We try to be a place where all of the different community groups can come together. Most have some sort of connection to the ocean, as you'll see, but not all, and we really want to be that hub and that place that the community can always use. We're going to have great convening space and lots of other resources. We're very happy to see everybody here, and we consider ourselves very much part of the Pedro family. Although I understand you got to be here about 40 years before you're considered a local. So my wife and I are planning to more. Yeah, Bruce is saying more. Well, my wife and I, literally today, our house in Santa Monica is going on the market, and we're planning to sell it and move to Pedro, so I've got 40 years to go. Is that what you're saying? All right. All right, well, enough about me and enough about that. Again, I just want to thank all of you for being here, all of our sponsors and supporters, and particularly our staff and our amazing volunteers. But first, to recognize the land and the tradition that we sit here on today. This was not always a port, of course. I want to recognize and bring to the stage Tina Calderon, our cultural advisor, who's a member of the Gabrielino, Tongva, Chumash, and Yoemi cultures and tribes, and she will give us a little more information about this land and the tradition that we're here on. Thank you so much. Tina.
Weshkoneha, Terry, and Tehovetametao. Good morning, all. Nitwanyane Tinor Duno Calderon, Komikrebet Naha Tongve, Koi Mixkanakan, Koi Yoeme, Aweshkoneha, Kwaavo Manete Hovetamet. And what I'm saying to you is, hello, my relatives. I'm Tinor Duno Calderon. I'm Gabrielino Tongva, Ventureño Chumash, and Yoeme. And I'm really happy to be here with all of you today. I do want to thank Altaci for providing this forum, for acknowledging our relatives, past, present, and emerging, the original Tarahatam, or peoples of Tovangad, which San Pedro is part of. Tovangad is our word for world, and it encompasses our territory. And our territory is quite large. People who ever have even heard of the Tongva usually think LA Basin, but we actually go from San Fernando Valley all the way south into Orange County and Newport Beach, east along the Santa Ana River to Corona and Riverside, and back along the foothills. And then we also held the 4 Southern Channel Islands. So often you look out and you can see Pimungna, Catalina Island, right? That's also one of our territories. So I just wanted to take that moment to thank my ancestors, because they left us with so many wonderful teachings about living in reciprocity and harmony with the lands, the waters, the minerals, the plants, the animals. All of that we look at as relatives. We don't look at them as resources. We don't use them. We live amongst them and we help them to thrive. And so I like to plant that seed everywhere I go, because you all have become the new caretakers as you live and work in these lands. And it takes all of us to be good relatives to help those relatives thrive. So I'm going to go ahead and offer an ancestor song. And when we think about our ancestors, as I just said, we're related to everything, all life, right? So those ancestors are not just human-centric. Those ancestors are all life who has thrived here. It also calls to the 4 directions, so life in every direction. And that also touches on your ancestors. So let's remember them, because they paved the way for us. We would not be here if it wasn't for our ancestors and all the life that help us to survive. Thank you. And before I leave the stage, I also want to just let you know that not only was this Tongva territory, but there were many, many, many villages all in this area around San Pedro and Long Beach. And the closest one that we acknowledge here is Swanga. And so it's really important to acknowledge our villages by the name that the people called them, the people who have thrived here for millennia and who have taken care of the lands, and the lands have taken care of us. For myself, I do a lot around the waters. It's so important. We cannot live without water, excuse me. You know, we learned from the Lakota when they were saying water is life, and that was thriving everywhere, right? So we also say, "Pare, ohar, ohar." That water is our life. We cannot live without it. So it's our responsibility to be good caretakers and take care of it. Not only utilize it, yes, those elements are here to help us to survive, but we too need to give back. It's called reciprocity. We need to give more than what we take. And we need to give in a good way, in a loving, healthful way, and with everything that we have. Our teachings are that we take nothing without asking for permission, and that we never take too much, we never take more than we need, we never waste. And so when you live in that way, things do continue and things do thrive. So have a wonderful day. Thank you for inviting me here. Always happy to be here with my Alta Sea family, and always happy to see so many people that are doing good works for the lands and the waters. So wesh koneha, wesh koneha.
Thank you, Tina. You know, it's such an important reminder. I mean, everything you said, we really appreciate and value. But one of the things that you've also taught us over the years is that, of course, the Tongva, the Chumash, the Gabrielino are still here. You know, we tend to think about tribal people and native people as, oh, that's the past history. But no, you're still here, and still here to help us take care of these, our friends, our relatives, our ancestors, and as you say, to try to give back and not take more than nature can provide. Now, before I get on with our program, which I know is the main reason you're here, I'm sure every one of you has been saying, wow, Terry, that's a cool cap. Where could I get one of these? Well, this and some other great swag is available at the table right at the back there. Robin, wave your hand. Robin, can you hear me? Wave your hand. Yeah, do you see Robin waving her hand back there? Great. Well, there's a table back there where you can join Alta Sea. You can be part of this great family, help us achieve our mission for education, for workforce training, for business development, for research, for protecting the resources, for protecting our ancestors and our brothers and sisters in nature as well as in the human family. So please become part of Alta Sea, and yes, you too can have one of these great caps. Well, now we're going to be talking about a really exciting way of becoming part of the ocean. And you know, one of the problems that we face with protecting the ocean and using it sustainably is most people experience it by just going to the beach. They look out, they see beautiful waves and surf and beautiful sky. Maybe they see a little trash on the beach and they feel bad about that, but mostly it looks like, well, what's wrong with that? The ocean is fine, it's huge, it can't possibly be hurt by humans. Well, no, it can be. But the one way that we can actually join the ocean, be part of it, really experience it, is through surfing. And so we've got a great panel today to talk about sustainable surfing, and it's my pleasure to introduce the moderator of that panel, who will bring up the panelists, and that's Haley Jane Hagerstone, Partnerships Director of Sustainable Surf, who uses surf culture to protect the ocean and reverse climate change. Their programs like Sea Trees, there's a table right over here, yes, wave your hand, very good, thank you, plants and protects and restores blue carbon in coastal ecosystems around the world, again, to help reverse climate change and protect nature. Haley also has extensive experience working with environmental nonprofits focused on eliminating plastic pollution and enhancing ocean conservation efforts and reversing climate change. You're going to keep hearing us talking about that. So please welcome to the stage, Haley.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. Can you guys hear in the back? Is that loud enough? Okay, awesome. Well, I think Terry did a fantastic job of introducing me, so thank you for that. And Sustainable Surf and Sea Trees, and please come, talk to my colleague Alex, who's over there, learn more about the work that we're doing and how you can get involved in actually planting and restoring these blue carbon ecosystems all around the world. We have a cool video that if we get our, power back up, we will show the video about sea trees. But in the meantime, I want to invite our amazing panelists to come up to the stage, and hopefully we all have loud voices. So can I get, well, Rye is checking the breaker. So Angela Sun, Nathan Florin, and Bodhi Patil, please come up to the stage. Sure. All right. Rye is checking the breaker.
And actually, you can continue to speak into the microphones because the live stream will be hearing you.
Oh, it will work.
The live stream
Okay.
will be. There's no sound here.
Perfect.
Live stream will hear you.
All right. The live stream can hear it, but they can't hear
Yes,
it.
they can. The live
Yeah.
stream will hear it.
Great. Perfect. Technology, it's always fun. Okay, well, while we wait for Rye, we'll start your introduction. So
Okay.
thank you guys all for being here. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. Let's start with the easiest question. Tell us your name and a little bit about yourself.
I guess I'll yell. And this is like I kind
do
of
you
talk
need
to my
the
professors in
microphone?
class like this when I am really upset with them, and I'm like, hey guys, can we focus on something else and focus on some ocean and some solutions and get that going? So use that in-class prof voice. But my name is Bodhi Patil. I'm an ocean climate solutionist, and what that means is that I help young people and all people, especially people that have least access to the ocean, get connected to the ocean in many different ways. And my work and studies focus on the intersection of ocean health and human health, which are inextricably linked. We know that without the ocean, we wouldn't have a healthy climate. Without the healthy climate, we wouldn't be on this planet. And so understanding the physical and also the metaphysical relationships in which we have with the ocean and why we need to protect it is critical, and that's what I love, and that's what I've dedicated my life to since I was 4 years old. Since I was probably the age of that little kiddo back there, or just a bit older. Shout out to the kids here. Falling in love with the coral reef and knowing that the ocean was the basis of all life. So really grateful to be here and make this panel intergenerational, and so glad that everyone's coming out on a Saturday to learn more about the ocean, because this is where it's at. So thank you.
Should we wait for Rye?
Might be coming back.
We gotta yell.
You better laugh. Should I go? Yeah, go ahead, Angela.
Do you want me to stand?
Might be better.
Oh, can I sit? Oh. Hey, hey.
Voila.
Hello, everyone. My name is Angela Sun. I'm a journalist and documentary filmmaker, and I have been in journalism for 20 plus years, worked a lot in sports, worked a lot in news, worked a lot in the intersection, currently on a show on NBC called California Live. I have covered sustainability a lot, and especially ocean issues and conservation, which led to the documentary Plastic Paradise, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, that came out in 2013, so 10 years ago. And then it went on to Netflix and then Nat Geo after that, after the film festival circuit and everything, before it got zeitgeisty about plastic trash in the oceans. Haley from then, and it's been quite a journey, but super excited to be on this panel with this great crew of people, and I know a lot of you guys from before, and so I just feel like it's a tight-knit group of ocean conservationists. We all fight for the same thing. We have the same struggles of getting people activated and stuff too, so it's so nice to be in great company with you guys, and very humbled and honored to just be able to talk story with everyone and about the journey of how we activate people to care about the sea.
Is that me next? I'm next. I don't really. I apologize if I'm too loud. I'm I've got like nervous energy because I've been
You
up
haven't
since.
slept?
No, I think I got like a 3-hour nap in. So what are you doing? I'm introducing myself.
Who are you?
I'm Ryan H. Harris, Rye for short. Eco by Rye is my brand. You'll see some of these shirts around. I am one of the newest tenants here at Alta Sea. I know everybody up here. I know a bunch of people here. It's really good to see everyone that turned out. And I am an Ecoboard pioneer. And huge shout out to Sustainable Surf and Kevin and Michael and Haley and the crew. They've been an integral part in what I've been doing. I'm one of their original partners, and breaking the mold of what's normal in the surfboard industry, which is the toxic standard surfboard. And I have been doing the polar opposite of that for about 15 years. And at the end of this, we're going to talk about something else I'm going to do that's crazy, because everybody thinks I'm crazy, but I just care about the planet. Yeah. And it's Black History Month, so I have to touch on that a little bit. There's a bunch of articles coming out on me. Hey, I'm kind of like the poster child. There's not too many of us that are making the boards that are African American, but it's very encouraging to see. This is going to be a really good segue into this gentleman to my left. It's really encouraging to see some amazing positives that came out of the negatives of 2020. I see some really, we'll just say pro surfers here that are black that 4 years ago. I'm sorry if I get emotional. It just wasn't a thing. So it's really nice to see us represented in surf schools, represented out in the space, out where I go. There's a contest at my local spot right now, and they have all these different regions competing against other people in teams, and literally half of the open men's age group that's competing today is black surfers that I know. And so it's never happened before in my life. I'm very excited. And this dude blew people's minds when he launched the Great Day in the Stoke, which was the largest surf contest of African American people, right in the middle of Huntington Beach at the pier. He had the mayor passing out awards. So, my man Nate, take it over.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. So I am Nathan Fluellen, the founder of A Great Day in the Stoke. These are some photos from year 1 and 2. As Ryan said, it is the largest gathering of black surfers in history. Our 3rd annual event, excited to say 3rd annual, will be September 14th. During the day, we have an all-black surf competition. We provide free surf lessons for anyone in attendance, and beach yoga and an award ceremony. Last year, we had Breitling as a sponsor, and they gifted 4 watches that were valued at $5,000 a piece to the winners, so that was exciting to be able to up the ante. Also, I'm the founder of Cavada Swimwear, which I'm wearing right now. It is the first black-owned surf performance swimwear line. So we focus on board shorts, and then we'll eventually incorporate swimwear for the women, and it'll be surf performance based. And so those are the ways that I'm participating in the surf community.
So now that we have our power back, we're going to show just a quick video about sustainable surf and sea trees. It's like 1 minute. And then I've got a bunch more questions for the panelists, and then we'll open up to the audience for questions.
At Sea Trees, we work in collaboration with grassroots restoration groups all over the world to restore and protect coastal marine ecosystems, ranging from mangroves and kelp forests to coral reefs, seagrass meadows, and coastal watersheds. Our partnerships help to expand the blue economy in a handful of ways, including direct restoration through the removal of invasive species and the replanting of native sea trees, funding critical research like the cultivation of thermally tolerant kelp strains, education through engagement with boat operators who navigate sensitive seagrass meadows, and monitoring and reporting through the use of state-of-the-art data capture techniques to assess restoration success. Our commitment to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals also means that our projects support the livelihoods of local communities who rely on these coastal ecosystems. Often these communities are at risk of impact from rising sea levels, ocean warming, destructive weather events, and biodiversity loss, which is why we're committed to increasing coastal resilience through restoration, monitoring, education, and research. As surfers, we figured the best way to give back to our ocean is to restore it, from all angles, which is why we're working around the world to do exactly that. We believe that the waves we ride can translate into waves of change. So join us in our mission to help reverse climate change. Our efforts are but one drop in an entire ocean. But what is an ocean without a multitude of drops?
So, as surfers, obviously, we selfishly want to protect our playground, but there's all these other reasons why we want to protect it. And Tina, I think you did a great job speaking about reciprocity and, not taking more than we need and not wasting. And that's really the core of a lot of what all of us are doing in our different ways. And so I think we'll get into that in this panel. So my next question is for everybody, and it's, what is your connection to the ocean, and what is your ocean superpower?
That's a great question. My connection to the ocean is that when I'm in the water, I feel like I'm closest to God because I don't have any electronic devices. I'm in a body of water that God created. Every wave is different. So then therefore I'm focused on the different waves that are coming my way so I can see where to ride those waves. I'm also a scuba diver, so I do explore like the ocean from below, and that's very aware of the importance of having the reefs and keeping that intact and supporting sustainability as well. So that's my experience, connection to the ocean.
I'm going to have a very long answer. I'm a pretty stoked individual. I make eco-friendly surfboards that people ride in the ocean, so I'm a stockbroker. That's my superpower. And I'm usually the loudest, biggest smiling person in the water and hooting for everybody. And lately I have been just goofing off with my GoPro and getting clips of everybody. So just keeping the stoke, positive vibes only. But the more I surf every day, and the more I explore the ocean, the more I get upset with how much trash I see. And so that's kind of like my main connection is the more time I spend in the water, the more trash I'm finding, the more I'm finding that I want to do better and educate more and encourage more people to do better. Go to the beach after it rains and see how much trash is there. Go to the beach on a weekend after, maybe a holiday weekend on the Monday or Tuesday and see how much trash is there. And so, yeah.
I think my connection to the ocean, obviously like all of us started young, and I think as a surfer and scuba diver, what got me into ocean, like this desire to even be in it was seeing like Voyage of the Mimi. I don't know if you guys remember that. Ben Affleck used to be in it. I'm dating myself now, but it was like a PBS show, or like the Jacques Cousteau documentaries. I feel like seeing this underwater world, or even going to the aquariums and stuff, I always just was so excited about these crazy, weird sea creatures. So I think the ocean, like, when you're diving or when you're surfing, like Nate said, it's just like this peace and tranquility, this blue-mindedness that, I don't know if you guys know, Wallace J. Nichols, the writer, wrote about blue-minded, how the ocean just like gives you therapy that we all need, just to kind of chill. So I think that that's my connection to the ocean. I think my superpower, I love telling stories surrounding the water, whether it's conservation related, whether it's social justice, climate justice, giving people space and being able to translate their stories to masses of people is really kind of what drives me. And because I'm so passionate and I love the ocean so much in terms of protection and sharing about the cool things about it, and it's great. I've covered stories about Rye. I've covered stories of different surf affinity groups, and but also about plastic trash. So I think that's what I'd hope to continue to do, is educate people and just kind of broaden the horizons a little bit about what's out there.
The ocean's our eldest ancestor, and I felt connected with the ocean with her before birth even. And when I was 2 years old, one of the largest tsunamis that ever hit the coast of Indonesia hit Aceh, and it killed over 175,000 people. And I realized that the ocean had the power to destroy. And it had so much incredible power, and we were at its mercy. When I was 4, I was just sharing the story of falling in love with the reef and going with my dad and snorkeling and seeing a black-tip reef shark and a green sea turtle and a school of herring and all sorts of beautiful urchins and sea stars and all the beautiful biodiversity we have in Indonesia. And I realized very quickly that this was being lost. And even from a young age, knowing that the ocean was suffering and knowing that she provided us life, but yet her life was being taken away was so powerful. And I came out of the water that day with my dad, and I put my hand up. I was like, Dad, I'm gonna protect the ocean. Like, this is what I'm gonna do with my life. And I knew it. And since 4 years old, for the last 17 years, that's the exact trajectory I've been on. And my superpower isn't in the ocean necessarily, it's actually in bridging different worlds and bridging different peoples and worldviews and ocean cultures and voyaging cultures together, and showing that regardless of who you are, whether you're a corporate working in banking, making money off more money, or whether you're working in the environmental sector at the front lines of climate justice, we actually all have a common goal: to protect our future ancestors, to protect our children, to protect this beautiful planet that we all live and enjoy. And so being able to help bridge worlds and help people understand that we're actually all in this mission to save planet ocean and to save the human race together has been something that I've loved doing. It's been my superpower, and yeah, I'm just super stoked because you all are along this journey with us, and these are great examples of incredible innovators doing specific projects that are addressing ocean health, and we need to continue to grow these movements, and we need you.
Thank you. That was awesome and super inspiring, I think. So let's get into some of these initiatives and find ways for the audience to maybe get involved. So, Ryan, I'm going to start with you.
Right.
So you are one of, if not the OG Ecoboard shaper. What is an Ecoboard, and what inspired you to start shaping them?
You know, I started making boards. I've been building boards. Colin, when did I move down here? One of my best. I've literally known him longer than I know of anybody on the planet. I've known him since I've known my folks. So one of my best childhood friends is here, and his wife. So sorry, I got sidetracked. He's right there. But yeah, I'm what they call an adult learner. I didn't really start surfing till I moved to California, because if you grow up in Oregon, pre-internet, you have a surf phone, like a snow phone that you call, and there's one report at about 8 in the morning. The Oregon coast is 2 hours from Portland. So by the time you get to the coast, that report is dated, because swells come up, the wind comes up, and it's usually, it's either too big or too windy or too cold or too sharky. So it was a little bit dangerous growing up, and my dad was, he was actually the first black coach in the state of Oregon, and he put me on water skis when I was little. Anyway, I guess I was always an environmentalist. I just didn't know it. And I fell head over heels with surfing as soon as I moved to LA 23 years ago. I started breaking all my boards because I'm a pretty big dude, and I was riding traditional stuff. And then a buddy was like, go get a blank, you can do that. You just buy some tools and make one. And it was awful, but I could write it. Because at the end of the day, a surfboard's a flotation device. So I wrote it, and then I just got obsessed with it. But all the while, I started thinking, dude, this stuff stinks. It's, I can smell bad stuff. I have asthmatic allergies, and I'm allergic to dust mites. That's fun if you make surfboards. But early on, I knew how toxic it was, and there's like 2 different things that happened that kind of forced my hand. There was the immediate closure of the surfboard blank manufacturing company called Clark Foam, and they had a monopoly on the industry. I think 95% market share or something like that, and they closed overnight, and they made the traditional polyurethane foam. So I'm going to get into the science of surfboards real quick. It's foam and fiberglass, and those are both bad. And then there's resin that hardens the fiberglass, and the resin, I call it PU. Well, it's PU for short, but PU because it stinks. There's VOCs, volatile organic compounds, and that's the stuff that kills you over time. It also leaches mycotoxins into the environment, and so does the foam. So when a board breaks, it's no longer waterproof. It's leaching mycotoxin into the surrounding environment, whether it be the topsoil or, let's just say, the reef at Pipeline that's been dead for 50 years, and surfboards have been getting pounded into that reef. So you could say that surfing and surfboards killed that reef. Anyway, so Clark Foam closed. Now it's the wild, wild west. So people are looking at epoxy and styrofoam, EPS, which, we know that styrofoam is from plastic. if you break down them, to a molecular level. But it's 100% recyclable, and it's closed cell foam. So it doesn't leach those same mycotoxins that the other traditional surfboard foam does. So that was good. And then the invention of bioepoxy, as in not petroleum-based like every other resin ever used before on surfboards. That was about 15 years ago, and it's in my story. I helped develop it. Kelly Slater uses it on his boards. Long story short, I was one of their guinea pigs, and the stuff was basically from sap, and it was super yellow like sap. Problem with that is, brand new surfboards, we're talking about the shortboards that all the pros are riding in the contest, they are white like that chair. And over time, boards yellow and decay. It's a natural process from the UV rays. And so a yellow surfboard looks old and crappy. So a brand new yellow surfboard, it took them a while to get started. And what they had to do was the molecular biochemist that invented it had to reverse engineer the dyes that went into the resin so he wouldn't lose that USDA certification that was so important to the bioepoxy. I didn't care because I'm an artist. I didn't care if my boards were yellow. I'd just airbrush them or do some artwork. And I just kept plugging away, and Sustainable Surf came around about the same time, and they launched the Ecoboard program, which is basically a verification system that says this is what an Ecoboard is. And so there's a logo on all the Ecoboards, and they've got a level 1, a gold level. Eventually, I'm going to get them to do some platinum stuff with what I'm doing with zero waste and recycling and upcycling and making boards out of trash. But yeah, so I'm off the topic, man. I already lost track of what I was talking about.
You're doing great.
You
answered the question.
That's what an Ecoboard is. That's, it's an effort to not use the traditional stuff. The original surfboard was an Ecoboard, by the way. Fallen down koa wood trees in Hawaii made with man-made tools and shells to shape them down and then glassed with an oil. That's it. Centuries ago, and we just screwed it all up. So we're trying to get back to the original surfboard. Also, those boards weighed like 200 pounds, so no. I'm not trying to pull a leg, getting in the way.
Awesome. Thank you, Rye. Thank you for educating us on Ecoboards, and I think we're going to learn a little bit more about Ecoboards after all of this. So, Angela, over to you. Your documentary, Plastic Paradise, introduced our audiences to the plastic pollution crisis back in 2013, as you said, which was 10 years ago. How has the movement changed in the last 10 years?
I was just thinking, it's 2024. It's actually 11 years ago now. I went out to the Great Pacific Garbage Patch in 2009, which is even longer a time, because that's when it came out, but actually the production and shooting it and editing and all of that and getting funding, which I didn't end up getting funding, and there was no Indiegogo, there was no crowdfunding. I basically hosted TV shows and stuff to fund it. So it was like little by little. But since then, it's been great to see this groundswell, and you kind of see this bell curve of acknowledgement and understanding and news cycle, getting zeitgeisty, right, about the plastic situation. And it I think it kicked off with the turtle with the straw on its nose went viral, which actually know that biologist in Costa Rica who founded that or had that video. And since then, she's been a huge conservationist. She's still there doing turtle research and working in the plastic pollution area. But there was a small group of us, and everybody knew each other, including Five Gyres, which is another group that did a lot of research, and Algalita Foundation, which is down here, which works with kids. Charlie Moore founded that, and he was actually the first one to go through the patch in 1997, which is even crazier. Oh, I think this is the video. With me and Rye. But how has we'll talk about that later. It's just kind of B-roll in the background. But how has it changed? It's been very uplifting and hopeful to see young people like Bodhi and other young people that I've talked to. I've spoken at a lot of festivals and college campuses and done all these tours. And to see the hope and the light in the next generation that, there is a lot of climate anxiety. There's a lot of that we've just thrown onto them, and they aren't backing down. They're not woe is me. They're so innovative and so energetic about the change. And I think it kind of hit a top on the bell curve around 2015, 16. That was when the film was also on Netflix. And actually, a side note, I was one of my proudest moments of, of some people, it's like, oh, I made network TV, oh, I made this, or I'm a news anchor or whatever. But for me, it was like randomly in downtown LA, I was at some, like the video game club or whatever, the bar in downtown LA, and in the arts district, and some random person came up to me and was like, did you make that film on Netflix? And I was like, you've seen my film? Because like, I didn't think anyone watched it. And I was like, I don't know if anyone's gonna like it, like what? And so having, it just like, and another person said, like, I changed my major to marine science because I watched that. I'm like, no way, So I feel like having that impact and seeing this groundswell of young people going to the Hill, demanding legislation from the local community side, like straight up, like at Santa Monica meetings and stuff that I've been to the federal level, to banning the microbeads. And there's so many different initiatives that have been going on. Surfrider, a lot of people have been doing such great work, and I feel like it's the grassroots, it's the young people that keep me going. And I've been scared to do a sophomore follow-up. Everyone asks, when's your next one? And I needed to take a minute to kind of regroup, and I feel like I get that drive to do it again, and the excitement from seeing people like Bodhi lead the charge, and it makes me excited to work on the next project. So I'm hopeful is kind of where I'm at with that. But there's so many great people doing great work.
And I think hope is a great segue into Bodhi. But first, I just want to mention that Angela and I go way back to the plastic pollution movement, and that was really where I got my start in environmental activism. And I think that is the case for a lot of people. I always think of plastic pollution as a gateway to environmental activism, because we all touch it every day, we all use it, we can all do something about it. Whether it's picking it up when we see it, using less plastic, saying no to the bag, there's so many little steps that we can take. So for those of you that are new to sustainability or getting involved in activism, it's a great place to start. And there's lots of amazing organizations working on it. As Angela mentioned, a couple like Five Jars and the Surfrider Foundation, Algalita, and others. So that's a good place. And on the topic of hope, Bodhi, you are so inspiring, and you've accomplished a lot as a young ocean leader. What keeps you going? What gives you hope when there is seemingly endless issues facing our ocean planet today?
This past summer, I was on a small island called Tetiaroa, which is Marlon Brando's private island, and it's now a research station, and it's all focused on the conservation of marine resources, but specifically focused on conserving culture and place. And this is an atoll in the middle of the South Pacific. And one night I was with my friend Hirahia, and we looked up at the stars, and she was telling me how her ancestors hundreds of years ago used to voyage with the stars, going from star map with their voyaging canoes. Some examples are right behind you over there that was handcrafted, and seeing how different voyagers across Polynesia could sail from island to island just using the stars as a map gives me hope. Seeing how different cultures in the Philippines can have folks that hold their breath for 5 to 10 minutes where they'll spearfish with just a tiny little pick as a prong instead of a full spear gun that we use now to be able to catch food for their family. To see the young kids in Indonesia and Bali that are now ripping, to see the kids in Senegal that are now coming up, that are going to be the next generation of young African surfers changing the WSL. What also gives me hope is seeing within the ocean and climate movement a stronger nexus between the ocean, and having all of you here today and having so many ambassadors around the world for the ocean, and seeing organizations like Sea Trees and like so many others, like Parlay, the one I work for and built the youth program for, that are continuously investing and supporting the next generation of young ocean leaders. And I guess a little story that brings me hope. So about on September 19th this year, or this past year, there was a discussion around the High Seas Treaty. Does anyone know what the High Seas Treaty is? Go ahead and raise your hand. Okay, so most people don't. Basically, it's a treaty to protect our global ocean, which is 70% of the planet. And it's in areas of biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction. So basically areas that are outside of a country's exclusive economic zone. And it's taken about 21 years, the amount of time I've been on this earth, for global leaders, politicians, heads of state ocean ambassadors to the UN to draft a treaty saying that they would protect the global commons, the common heritage site, which are the high seas. And seeing that there was so much momentum from world leaders, from activists, from frontline leaders, from very influential people like Jane Fonda, and seeing the next day, I believe on September 20th, that the High Seas Treaty was then supported and endorsed and signed onto by about 80 member states at the UN during the UN General Assembly. And some of the folks like Taylor over here, who's an ocean hero, who also has his beautiful facility, so you should check it out later on Seaweed Art, was a champion of this message. To see that these treaties, like the Global Plastics Treaty, like the High Seas Treaty, like a full phase out of fossil fuels, are becoming more prevalent and more common, despite increased pushback, despite increased conspiracy even, is so hopeful for me. And as a young ocean leader, I also know the realities of the world in which we live, and I also see the inequities of access to the ocean, the fact that kids on islands that should be surfing, that should be ripping, that should be out there diving, are drowning because they're not learning how to swim because there's so many inequities. To see why kids in the Caribbean and in Bermuda and across the islands in Southeast Asia and across Micronesia are constantly being at risk from storm surge and from their houses going underwater because of coral bleaching and the reefs dying, because the reefs provide a barrier. And I know this is touching on a lot of things, but what gives me hope is seeing that these same kids that are so under threat from these stressors are now deciding to form coalitions around sustainable surf on their islands, deciding that they're going to protect their reef from external threats, deciding that they're going to become coral gardeners, that they're going to work in the blue economy, that they're going to build back better, they're going to build their reef, build their island, protect their home. And I'm going to study that for my PhD. I'm really set on it. Coral resilience in the South Pacific and what communities can do to protect their island homes, and how at-risk youth can go back from, instead of being on the streets selling dope, go to the reef and plant coral, and how we can make that transition in the blue economy, because we need it. And we need all these folks here that are innovating in the space, because ocean equity is something that's top of mind, and it's what we all need for hope.
Amazing. Every time I hear you speak, I'm so inspired. So Nate, there's so much I want to ask you after reading your bio and seeing that you've been to 75 countries, all 50 states and 7 continents. I have so many questions, but we only have so much time, so let's focus on a great day for Stoke. And how did you get the largest gathering of black surfers to coalesce in Huntington Beach, of all places?
Well, great. So I will take it back and get some context. I'm originally from Chicago, and I've been swimming since I was 10 months old. And in Chicago, unfortunately, it's very segregated. So on the south side, it's just all black folks. So growing up, all the black people I knew how to swim. So when I went to college, I went to a HBCU, which had black people from all over the United States and the world. I started to hear that black people don't know how to swim. And that really blew my mind. And then so when I moved to California, that was always in the back of my mind. And for my first TV show called Worldwide Nate African Adventures, I discovered the Zulu Boys and Girls Surfers, and it's in Durban, South Africa. So I was excited because I was like, okay, I can use this as an opportunity to change the narrative or highlight that black people or Africans, know how to swim and surf. And so fast forward to what Ryan mentioned, 2020, there was the killings of Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and Aubrey Ahmaud. And we were going to paddle outs in solidarity with the surf community, et cetera. But for me, it was exhausting. We were coming together in reaction to a tragedy, and I saw that we just needed a time, an opportunity to come just celebrate our existence. And so that was the initial thought of a great day in the Stoke, just coming together and celebrating our existence. And being Worldwide Nate, my perspective is that God put us here on earth. Man created countries, borders, states, et cetera, these barriers, but in my mind, God put me here and I'm gonna explore this earth. So when you said Huntington Beach of all places, I don't connect with the history of Huntington Beach. It's like I go there and I saw that they had the US Open, which had the biggest competition. So I was like, oh, well, if the best compete here, I wanna bring my community here so they can compete where the best compete. And so that's my connection to Huntington Beach, so I don't have those experiences that California people have, because I've just that's just my nature is to go wherever I want. So with building this movement, I wanted to be able to focus on building up the number of competitive black surfers. Because there's a bunch of infinity groups that are providing free surf lessons like Soulfly Surf School back there, Color the Water, Texture Waves. There's so many now. So like our niche is focusing on competitive black surfers and just bringing and then showing like that black people are surfing, and then therefore the people that are in the middle of America or even just that live here in California, they will see that and then they're like, oh, they'll be inspired to want to learn how to surf, which will inspire them to learn how to swim. So it's like reverse engineering and providing that inspiration, because for me, growing up, I swam my entire life, but I didn't see anybody that looked like me that surfed. So I didn't ask my mother to put me in surf camp, but I saw Michael Jordan, so I asked her to put me in basketball camp. So representation does matter. And so it's great to have this opportunity to have a great day in the Stoke, be on the panel and share this message and show the value of equity in just the sport of surfing. Because what happened is that the youth that are like 5 years old and they see somebody like Julian who's back there who won 2 of those Viking watches,
Put them on blast.
or Soulfly or Ryan or me, they will want to get to the ocean at an early age, and that opens them up to opportunities for junior lifeguards, becoming more involved in ocean conservancy, and they can go to the coast and be involved and know that they have access to these spaces and areas, and then that provides economic opportunities. And then that allows them to bring that messaging and that awareness of just like not putting trash in the trash can. And then, in LA, there's the runoff in the river, so then they can know that, okay, what I do here in Inglewood, Watts, Compton, South Central, the Inland Empire, it will affect what's happening in the ocean. So therefore, like, just equity, diversity, inclusion is gonna like ultimately, save the planet and affect and change lives.
Thank you. That's amazing.
I gotta put someone on blast
Yeah?
after we applause that.
Go for it.
Julian, who's here, who he talked about, I think he's won back-to-back. Great day in the Stoke, but not only has he won the shortboard competition, he won the longboard, and in our South Bay Board Rider Series, he's done it 2 contests in a row. That shortboard and longboard, he's a freak. And he's black, and he's turning heads, and I love to see it. So, yeah.
So let's talk about diversity. Everyone's favorite topic. This is a rather diverse panel, and that is not always the case in the environmental movement or surfing for that matter. But thankfully that's shifting. And there was a recent report released by SEMA that looked at diversity within surfing, and it showed that African American, Black, Hispanic, Asian Pacific Island surfers now constitute nearly 40% of the total surfing population in the United States. It's incredible. And furthermore, females make up 40% of the total surfing population. So this goes to show that, there's a lot of positive impact around diversity initiatives and making surfing more representative of our broader population. And as Nate said, representation matters. So how does diversity impact the work that you all do in your everyday lives?
I'm going to go back to 2020, and basically this is going to be actually really short. So everybody here knows, at least on this panel, knows Salema Masakela. He's a really good buddy of mine, basically the voice of extreme sports. And when all this crap was going down in 2020, because everybody knows me as this Ecoboard pioneer, when the resurgence of the BLM happened, the same surfboard industry that's helped put me on blast with sustainability reached out and said, hey, Ryan, you want to talk about being a black shaper? And Salema said, if you're silent, you're complacent. Because I felt like I didn't have a voice to speak on what I looked like in my space. I only talked about sustainable surfboards. I didn't talk about my experience as being a black man making surfboards in a, pretty white industry, even though it came from Hawaii, and actually we found that there's a little spot in Africa that predates that even. There's a film that David Mesfin did called Wade in the Water that you guys should check out. It's awesome. But yeah, I kind of just am a freak, and I'm always trying to figure out what I can make with trash. So I'm in here, in my little bubble, but realize I look a lot different than the average board builder. So I'm not silent. I talk about it. I'm very loud. I'm very vocal, and it's about representation. So I found out through 2020 that I'm not the only black shaper. There's other guys, Michael Lynch in San Diego, but they look up to me because I was able to do it. And yeah, it's pretty cool.
So I'll piggyback on that, what Rye said, because actually it jogged a memory of, so I did a piece for Spectrum News on Ryan, and it was about styrofoam eating superworms, which was something that he was testing out with the Ecoboards. And I remember, I think it was around the 2020 era,
Yep.
because I asked him, it wasn't something that went through my mind. Like when you say, how does diversity impact your work? I don't really think about it. I'm like, I'm going to interview a black surfer. I don't think about, I'm going to interview a indigenous First Nations person on this specific topic or whatever. Like, I just go and interview interesting people, and I just see people as people, but maybe it's the weird blinders or whatever. Anyways, I knew Rye from before, and I was like, oh, let's do a story on this styrofoam eating superworm. It was really about worms and how do we kind of keep the circular economy going and everything. And I asked you about your experience with being in the water and looking different and stuff. And you're like, I don't want to. Yeah, I remember you were hesitant about it. You were like, I don't know if I want to talk about that because it's not my zone. This is sustainability. I do eco, and it's interesting to see how like you flourished. And I mean, the thing is that I feel like I don't know, I can't speak for everybody on this panel or anybody else, but I think for me, like, I don't think about diversity because you just live it. Like, you're just like, this is my life. Like, sometimes, like, like, I've always wanted to be the person to, get my white surf friends to go get dim sum with me, like in SGV or something, or, like, introduce this new food or introduce this new activity or, take, like, a lot of my friends are like, oh, but Asians don't do that. Like, we don't do that. Like, I'm like, why not? Like, why wouldn't you go travel and go adventure and all that? Like, it's not what you do. You go to Disneyland and, like, we're all about eating and food and, I'm totally being stereotypical, but I'm Asian, so I'm just gonna say it. I'm Chinese. But, another thing, like, I just feel like diversity in work, I think we all bring our personal experiences into our work. One of the things I really hope to touch on, especially with ocean conservation, is growing up Chinese, I had shark fin soup. Like, that's just what you have at weddings and banquets. I remember when my brother got married, I was like, I can't go to your wedding, dude, if you're gonna have served shark fin soup. Like, I just can't. Like, it's like not, like, you gotta not do it. We gotta, like, start literally from your family level and the cultural level of stuff like that, right? So it's like, and obviously China is the one doing a lot of the damage to our oceans. Like, they're the ones with the giant troll fishing ships and commercial fishing and not adhering to High Seas Treaty, going out and just raping and pillaging the rest of the world, going to Africa, going everywhere. Anyways, that's a whole different bag of tricks, but or different topic. But I'm just saying, like, I don't think like, oh, I'm gonna go cover this because it's a diversity or DEI initiative. It's just because it's a cool story and they're cool people. They happen to be this, they happen to be that. But I feel like if I can give a platform, I do. And I looking at my stories and kind of portfolio, I'm like, oh, I actually kind of go towards that direction because I want to see people like me talking about XYZ on panels, like heads of organizations and stuff. And so I crave that. So I look for that in finding cool profiles and stories to cover. And that's something I'm just realizing now, that it's just kind of an innate thing that I think all of us want to see people like us doing the things that we love, right? So I think that's where, for me, the diversity does impact my work, because you aren't, as a journalist, like, you could say you're objective, especially covering sports. Like, you're like, you gotta be Switzerland, especially during like baseball. I covered baseball and from the Bay Area, but covered for Dodgers, and then for the A's and stuff. It was very like, you gotta wear just neutral gray colors, and there's a lot of fandom in sports arena, and you just gotta keep neutral. But no one is fully objective in reporting. And as we see, even recently, there was a big study that showed that now more people don't trust journalism and journalists. They trust TikTokers and influencers and just go to like their little silos of what they want to see on the, and that we get fed on the algorithms of social media. So then how are you a trusted source? How do you actually keep a level head? And I want to say I'm completely objective, but I have personal experiences that fuel my direction of work. Now, I'm not going to say I'm the DEI person. I'm the one who covers sustainability and diversity here at whatever I'm working on. But I do tend to want to highlight people who reflect what I crave. So I guess that's how it impacts it. But I do hope also to be objective, because there is a journalist ethos of like, you look for the facts, you do your research, and maybe that's old school. Maybe I'm just like dating myself again with Voyage of the Mimi. But, I do feel like that is your duty as someone in this field to tell it as it is and not angle it. But we all have personal bias, that's all.
Well, I am, if you guys didn't notice, I'm black. And so living in America, so by default, like diversity is something I experience, except in Africa, where I just calming moments is just standing in Africa and just seeing people walk past me and pay me no attention. It's like, oh, this is what it's like to not have to be in the diversity box. So as an American or African American, Black American, my focus within the industry is always going to be highlighting Black people, and the main thing is driven by that is the statistic that 64% of Black people have low to no swimming experience. And there's a whole story arc with that, from pools being public places where people would come to get and gather during the 50s and 60s, and then there's the development, the white plight, which developed the suburbs, which privatized swimming lessons, and then public funding, conservative fiscal policies closed a lot of public pools, and then therefore right now we have these dire statistics. And then now the stereotype is that Black people know how to swim, but it's not these causes that prior to diversity, back in the Jim Crow eras and stuff like that, which caused this situation. So in my journey is to course correct those things that happened decades ago. So that's where my motivation comes from, as far as being diverse and diversity and bringing that to the surf industry.
Just a quick story. So 1 month ago at COP28, which is the largest climate convention, I attended with a group of indigenous elders and leaders that were all focused on ocean health and connection, that were focused on cultural stewardship and reciprocal values in the environmental movement, that were focused on material innovation and alternative energy sources, education and climate literacy, and much more. And I was actually the only young person besides my 6-year-old, basically little sister, Moana, which means ocean, who was in the delegation. All the elders were, of course, elders. And so as the young person representing kind of like digital media and socials and how we share a message across the world, I felt a really big responsibility to share the wisdom of our ancestors, to share the knowledge of stewardship, to share all the cultural practices that have come from incredibly rich and remote and diverse areas with the world. And so it was really interesting to kind of speak at COP on honestly way too many panels. It was like 25 panels or 30 over the week, to world leaders, to politicians, to business owners, to executives, to corporates, to everyone, to kids, and share this important piece of diversity, including age and relativity of how we're including all generations within the conversation. And just a super quick anecdote, in Maori culture, which is from Aotearoa, New Zealand, we have our Maori people, and I'm saying we because I'm just saying we have so many Pacific brothers and sisters all around the planet, regardless of where you're from, you're a part of this ocean community because it connects us all. That's why I say we as ocean people have a really strong message around the va'a, which is a sailing canoe, which I was just describing over there, and it has 5 pillars, and each pillar is about 20 years, which represents one generation. And so Maori people plan for 100 years, so they represent the entire 5 generations or 7 generation planning in Turtle Island, it's known as North America, and having all this longevity of planning to incorporate future ancestors and future generations into the decision-making processes happening now is critical to diversity, because how can we have a diversity in the ocean conservation movement without having people of color, without having indigenous leaders, without having young people, without having kids, without having kids that are about to be born that are future generations represented, and making sure that we incorporate equity and justice as a central proponent to ocean conservation is going to be one of the keys to unlocking kind of a gateway of ocean possibilities. And that's what our movement is missing, and that's what these folks and legends, honestly, are helping to fill the gaps in. But we need your help, because this is a big, big groundswell that we need to keep mobilizing so that we can surf those waves, because it's going to take all of us together to really get this intergenerational justice, to get this gender justice, to get this inclusivity justice across all demographic groups. The ocean needs it because she holds the most amount of biodiversity on our planet, and she holds so many species that are also biodiverse. So why don't we recognize diversity in our cultures and value that as well, like we do in the ocean?
Love that. So I have one final question, and then we're going to open it up to the audience. And this is your last opportunity to plug something that you all are working on. So can you share any initiatives or projects you're involved in that promote diversity within the environmental movement or surfing, and how the audience can get involved?
Well, also, I will answer that question, but I also want to highlight what you said about the women being 30, you said 30 or 40%?
40% now.
So in year one at A Great Day in the Stoke, we had 6 women competitors. In year 2, we had 18. So I was excited about the growth of the number of black women competitors, and so that adds to that reinforces that statistic. But then, what's the question again?
Oh,
An initiative that you're working on
Well,
about promoting.
initiative is always A Great Day in the Stoke. September 14th, 2024. Everybody is welcome to come. You know, it's open to everybody. You can come and support that. That's the main thing we do every year. This summer, we'll be launching Kavada Kids, which is our nonprofit, and then we'll focus on providing inner city kids focused in Inglewood, Compton, and Watts free surf lessons, and then working with LA County to increase the number of black lifeguards in their system.
Yeah, we can clap.
Why not who's gonna end it?
Hey, you want me to end it?
Well, 'cause
How much time we got?
I think you should end it because we're
I
gonna.
meant you're gonna take
Oh,
us
yeah, I'm
over
going
there.
last.
Okay.
I think, I guess for me, I love telling stories, and I'm always looking for cool stories. So if anyone has people that, do ocean conservation, or anyone linked to oceans, and I mean, I'm always looking to pitch stuff, and really inspired to, jump in the deep end and do another long form talk. I feel like I'm at a good spot to be able to do that. I had to take a little personal regroup. Now I have a little toddler, so now I feel like I'm past the baby stage and can get back into work mode. But I feel like if anyone wants to collaborate on stuff, or working on the media side, or need coverage, this is it's just some B-roll that we shot with Rye for a spec film, and talking about his new project, actually. I happened to go out. We know that crazy atmospheric river, the first one, the crazy storm. I went out to Kenter Drain, which also has huge historical significance as Inkwell Beach. I don't know if you guys know all the history of Inkwell, and it was only like safe haven for a lot of black people to go to during a time in LA County, and feel safe and be able to play in the water. And there's a lot of Santa Monica history, LA history on that. But Inkwell, so it's Kenter Drain, where the storm drain goes out, and just within 5 minutes we picked up so much, and then I got rid of there was aerosol cans and stuff, and then got rid of some stuff, and then brought the green planter thing back here.
Not my favorite color.
To Rye, and the fact that we can circular economy, take our stuff that we devalue and that we think that we're going to throw away, made once but lasts forever. I always, even to this day, the stat that I used in my film was every single piece of plastic ever created on this planet is still here. So if you don't see it, where does it go? You know, where does it end up? That's kind of gnarly to think about. Like every single piece of plastic is still here that was ever created from the 1950s on.
Only 9% of all plastic ever created has been recycled.
So it's this greenwashing that the industry's been telling us, the big corporations saying like, oh, just put the label on it, put the leaf, like PET plastic. I learned all this stuff about the numbers, 1 to 2, HDPE is the only one that can be recycled, and this like buy yoga pants that are made out of bottles or whatever, right? But like that stuff, the stuff that Rye's working with, that's the stuff that can't be recycled. That's the stuff that literally just ended up in the ocean. I found that giant planter about to go out into the surf, like right at Bay. And what he's doing with it is really cool, so I'll let it to Rye. I'll transition it to you.
Okay. Yeah, so I launched something this morning that we're going to talk about in a minute, and after this is over, you guys are going to basically see a bunch of show and tell. But I got to back up a little bit. We're going to talk about how toxic surfboards are and how important something that Sustainable Surf did years ago was and what it did to my journey. I knew, I was using better materials. I'm not going to kill myself because I'm using a bioepoxy. There's no fumes, blah, blah, blah. But making surfboards is very wasteful. And so what Sustainable Surf did is they did an audit on one of the biggest factories, one of the number one labels, and basically tracked how much waste was generated to create a surfboard. We're going to talk about shortboards. I'm going to keep it simple. That's what all the pros ride. That's what you see. That's what's marketed. So your traditional shortboard, surfboard weighs about 6 pounds. And made with traditional materials, they found that 6 pound board, 12 pounds of waste was generated to make that 6 pound board. That's double the weight of the finished product. Now, what if that product breaks? There's about 400,000 surfboards made every year, and I just talked about the smallest one. What about paddleboards? What about longboards? Let's talk about the pro surfers that go through sometimes 5 to 10 boards per event. How many surfers are on the pro circuit? They're getting batches of 15 to 20 boards made super light. They're basically the polar opposite of a circular system. They're buy it, throw it away. And they're leaching microtoxins. So I knew, this is about 6 years ago, I needed to at least try and figure out my waste. So the the good board counterpart, the epoxy board, the same weight of waste was generated. So 6 pounds of waste to make a 6 pound board. So I'd reduced my waste by 50%, but I was like, I'm not really getting anywhere. I'm just here. I'm not getting ahead. So what they were doing, what that did, lit a fire under me to create the Zero Waste Initiative. And we're about the 6-year anniversary of that. And I did a crowdfunding to do it. And mealworms were part of it. And ultimately those little buggers turned into beetles, and it's not a good look. So we figured out some other ways to upcycle. But the goal there was to close the loop on surfboard manufacturing waste. And I'm still the only one doing it. But recently, from all this rain, I've been doing beach cleanups, and she reached out, and I'm noticing all this trash from the rain. And as surfers, we really see how much plastic not just comes out of the drains, enters the water column, and it's cyclical. It comes back on the high tides, then it gets pushed out again, and it comes back in again. So there's always trash. It's in the water column. We've seen the sea turtles. So she came by and said, hey, can you make something out of this plastic trash I got? I go, yeah, as a matter of fact, I got some plastic trash. So for the first time, I didn't just upcycle my surfboard waste. We used ocean-bound plastic and upcycled it. And so what I have here, and what we're going to go around the corner when we're done and look at, is some of the products that I'm able to make out of, I got this morning, little 10-second stroll, 4 pieces of trash. And what you're looking at, doesn't this kind of look like, if you hold the light, a wave that went viral? There was a barrel wave, and it was just filled with trash. It looks like the trash wave. So that is literally the green broken planter that she brought in here, along with upcycled bioepoxy from the boards. Same with this one. And then this is a little bowl, so it holds a lot more trash. So as of this morning, I launched a new crowdfund to help promote and kickstart what we are launching at the Alta Sea that I'm really, 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 really over the moon on. We're launching the first, it's got a really cool acronym because it's short and sweet. It's a mouthful. But the Educational Center of Sustainability and Surf is the ECOS. They're in the midst of a renovation on the main campus, and we are going to be over there with the ability to take ocean-bound plastic and create things out of it and divert it from the landfill and the oceans entirely. This is just the tip of the iceberg. We're going to be able to make pretty much anything I can wrap my head around. We're going to be able to make plastic 2x4s out of shredded up waste that kids bring in and make benches. I can make stools. I can make I can make anything. So that's what I'm launching, and you can learn about it over there when we're done.
And I think on a personal note, it was really cool just to see something tangible, which you guys will all get to see Rye do, like physically bring something and seeing the change, and then seeing the value that like just you can add value to trash, and we throw so much stuff away. Like even my family calls me the plastic police, and like during like parties and stuff, I'm like, no, we're bringing real forks. We're using bamboo plates, but I don't try to be, but it's still very hard. It's very hard. Sometimes you just go to the coffee shop and you bring your cup, and they're like, we don't take that. Or you bring your lid, they're like, we don't take that. Or I have to put a lid on it because of some safety issue. And I'm like, eagle eye, like watching them make it. I'm like, please don't put a lid, and then they put the lid, and they're like, oh, you don't want it? And then they just throw it away, and you're like, ah. So I think going to patronize at those establishments that actually do take that time. I know there's a new California initiative and law that they're trying to, a bill that they've proposed to tell coffee shops and establishments that they have to provide 4-here cups now. But it's still like, I've been talking about for 10 years, and like one of the things that hasn't changed is that like 90% of the time that or 90% of the people at the coffee shop, even now in 2024, you go in there, something as simple as using a 4-here cup, and everyone's like sitting there with their to go, because it's like this thing with, I don't know, like we just have this familiarity with that little sippy cup top and the actually the plastic, a lot of the lining in the paper cups is also plastic too, which I feel like a lot of people know here too. But I literally try to put it in our compost, and it's there like a year later, the lining, not the paper part. But I just think it's cool that you guys will be able to see it, and it's tangible, and it's something that we can all do.
I also, real quick, just to jump back on that, I really want to, I'm very thankful that I'm here at Altasea. It's just been a rough 2 years. My social media got deleted, and then, I don't have the old factory, but being in a sustainable campus as an Ecoboard pioneer is pretty freaking awesome. And this place there's such leaders in education, and it is this next generation that is inheriting the damage that we created, and they're the ones that are going to save our planet. And so this little recycling center and educational center could be pretty huge, because what's the other thing we know? That 90% of our curbside recycling is not getting recycled. Yeah. So we have to take action and place the value in what you can make out of that plastic trash. So that's what we're doing with Altasea.
This is so rad. And speaking of kids, plastic, and innovation, there's an awesome program that I co-created with a bunch of young leaders, with a bunch of older leaders, with a bunch of industry leaders from an organization called Parlay for the Oceans, that is a collaborative space for ocean protection. And Rai knows it, and many of you might know, we do collaborations with big organizations all around the world and use marine debris to create shoes and use gill net to create different linings, and we do all sorts of innovations with companies like Adidas. And within Parlay, we created a youth program called Ocean Uprise. And on the note of kids, plastic, and innovation, we were able to build a Parlay air station, which, similar to this container, is a large 20 or 40-foot shipping container that is then turned into an all circular recycling and upcycling community center where kids can come to a central location. The first one was in Honolulu at the Bishop Museum, which is the Polynesian Cultural Center. And it was a place where over 60,000 kids have gone in the last 3 years to learn about the ocean, to learn about the community that they're a part of, to learn about Polynesian and Hawaiian culture, to learn about marine debris upcycling, to make all sorts of different carabiners, and to make, we did buoy paintings, and we did all sorts of like marine debris fun upcycling. And it was awesome to be able to be there 3 years ago when we were doing the land acknowledgement, when we were blessing the land, I was digging up the holes for every day for 12 hours, putting in the fence posts so that we'd be able to actually create this beautiful structure that's now educated so many thousands of kids from all around the world, and so many local kids from Kalihi, from the neighborhood, that's typically underserved. Even though they're in the center of Honolulu, they don't actually have access to the water. And it makes me so happy to see that like this plastic innovation is becoming really reciprocal in the way where it's not just about the material now, it's about the way in which we interact with the material, the way that the material has a story, and what goes beyond that story to how it inspires others. And I think with these young people all around the world rising up for the ocean through Ocean Uprise, we're seeing now that in our network that's been only 4 years old, but it's grown to over 5,000 youth with over 200 alumni and a couple ambassadors that literally span over 40 countries now, that are able to go into their communities, advocate for single-use plastic bans, advocate for policy push, advocate for ocean protection, advocate for marine protected areas, advocate for all the great things that we need to protect the ocean, and have this really central component about circularity, about understanding of how culture and ocean kinship connects to this bigger movement. And just as we push forward innovation, we have to push forward supporting the next generation of innovators. And that means in the surfboard industry, of course, within Black surfers and within surf culture, and changing surf culture so that all surfers are ocean guardians too. Like, duh, why aren't you surfing and protecting the ocean? The ocean protects you, it gives you joy. Like, that's why whenever I'm out in the waves, which isn't as much as I should be, but it's every single session I can get possible, I'm always like around me like, hey, what are we doing to protect the ocean, my friends? Like, what are we doing to protect our waves? And I just, 2 really quick points. 3 great organizations. One, Surfers Against Sewage. They're based in the UK. They've made massive ripples in terms of local policy push for sewage reduction and pollution inflow into the UK's surf ecosystems. 2, Save the Waves. We all love them. We all know them. They're a great organization that's working on giving waves kind of legal rights and the rights of the ocean. It kind of as an entity, as a living, breathing entity that can actually be protected by law under federal jurisdiction. The first one is in Chile and across other awesome waves in South America. And there are a couple other organizations like Parlay, like Ocean Uprise, like Sustainable Surf and Sea Trees that are just totally showing the world that there is a better way. There is a way that we can live in reciprocity with the ocean that doesn't have to be destructive, that can be circular, and that we need really badly now.
That's what I wanted. A round of applause for our amazing panelists. And now let's see your questions. Yeah?
I've heard a lot about plastic.
I think we have a microphone coming for you.
I've heard a lot about plastic recycling today. I'm curious if any of you have any thoughts or maybe even believe that all the plants in the ocean, seaweed, kelp, coral, etc., and for that matter, all the plants on the land are actually sentient beings, and that we as humans just have not evolved enough consciously to be able to communicate with them, and what that future may hold for us and the plants working together in the world.
I would love to briefly answer that. That is like so interesting and so important. So what provides most of the oxygen on our planet is, wait, can anyone guess?
Kelp or seed.
Wait, just shout it out. Phytoplankton, okay. What else? Okay, these tiny little things, Prochlorococcus, Synectococcus, and other photosynthesizing marine algae and greens.
Algae.
Yeah, exactly. Boom, algae. And I think all these living creatures are not only sentient beings, but they're literally, as I said, our eldest ancestors. We came from these tiny microscopic bacteria in the ocean, and we came from like all of life on the planet basically originated from the ocean, and seeing that evolution of science coming from the ocean. And now that these creatures, these tiny little friends in the ocean, these little green things floating around, keeping everything healthy, keeping everything thriving, are the reason why we're still thriving and alive, is so important. So recognizing them as recognizing the inherent rights of the ocean, the fact that just like rivers should have rights as legal entities, like in Aotearoa with the Maori, with the Wanganui River, the ocean should have legal rights as a living entity. I'm working on a project with a large organization that does kind of Sail GP and a couple other organizations that sail all around the world to give the ocean legal personhood. Like, all these beautiful, important species and abundance of biodiversity should have legal rights just like humans do. And the ocean as a body needs to have rights because she deserves to be protected by law under the highest courts of the International Court of Justice. So yeah, great question, thank you.
Can I follow up real quick? If anyone has,
Sorry if that didn't answer your question.
No, just a quick follow-up. If anyone has any interest, there's a great book series written by Frank Herbert and Bill Ransom, I think in the late 70s, called Destination Void. It's a science fiction novel that kind of talks about this. It's really interesting, though.
Thank you.
I've always lived on island or peninsula, Lake Superior, New York City, Miami, and now out here. And I'm really confused why plastic bags are handed to me at the grocery store here. Why hasn't that stopped?
I guess I could speak to that. So it starts, a lot of the plastic industry and corporations have found loopholes in state bills, not in California per se, but like in Florida and stuff. They got ahead of it because they saw what was happening in California with local municipalities and activists and the local community demanding to not give those plastic bags, like the cutlery and stuff too, the to-go bags and all that. So they jump it and they go to the state level and they create some, sort of resolution that's like, you can't change the law for local unless it's from a state level or whatever. Anyways, it happened in Florida. We were pissed. I remember working on that with Five Gyres and stuff. This was a while ago. And I think you remember that one, the Florida. Yeah, and so in California, a lot of people see California as the 5th largest economy and also as this beacon of what green sustainability and, living can look like. And so I've seen throughout the past 15 years is these, the groundswell of young people or the movements that have, it started on the grassroots level with the specific municipalities. So it's like City of Long Beach, City of San Pedro, City of Santa Monica, and them making strides. Like City of Santa Monica, I remember being at the council meeting and, they were taking whatever public opinion or whatever to go up there and talk. So I was there with Surfrider and it was about marine degradable styro, those to-go clamshell containers and stuff. Because it's a lot of it's in the semantics. So if the plastic big corporations get away with it, they'll just flip the switch on the wording. And you might have been given, because in most counties in California it's been banned, the single-use disposable bag. But some of them, you'll see it says reusable on the bag, and it's actually thicker plastic. So you're like, wait a second. So basically they made a thicker version to make it reusable, but it's still the same stuff. So, and I've visited the MRFs, which are the recycling centers that a lot of our curbside waste gets diverted to, and talked to the people there. And as Rai said, less than 10% of the world's plastic trash ever gets recycled, like even less in different municipalities because of the way that there's no like streamlined structure. Every county is different the way they take in the waste and every certain type of number that they can take in. So it's not a great system. It's not streamlined. I'm sure it's like the same thing with like electric vehicle charging and stuff too. It's like there's still a lot of work to be done. It's just not sexy work. It's not exciting. It's like waste. It's literally trash and plastic that no one wants to talk about, but so mundane. So I think that's maybe why you're seeing that there's still places giving that out, because marine degradable was a big term, because like, oh, will this actually disintegrate in the ocean? There's this shoewear company that works with Scripps in San Diego that I interviewed called Blue View, and they actually tested out this foam that they created in the lab, which was made out of algae, and it actually biodegraded underneath the Scripps Pier within 6 months, like the sole did. And that's something that's marine degradable. But the stuff that you see that's like at Whole Foods or wherever with the little leaf that says it's corn plastic or plant-based bio, like it isn't really. It has to be heated in a certain compostable plastic is a greenwash word or term where, again, semantics, where they get away with it because people are like, oh, we don't want to think. We don't want to like go in the weeds of all this stuff. We just want to be like, cool, it's compostable. Awesome. I'll order this for my party I'm having or whatever. But it's not.
And then nobody composts.
Yeah, no one composts it. It also can't be unless it's in a high temperature specific facility that actually breaks it down. You can't just chuck it in your backyard compost. So I think that at level, you know, it's kind of like you've got to dig a little deeper as a consumer to learn about this stuff. Ain't nobody got time for that. Like, we're all busy people. Like, we just want the easy way, right? So I think understanding and activating ourselves to care starts with showing things of why we should care, right? Like the beauty in these places that we should protect and all of that. But not to get so in the weeds about the plastic bag thing, but that's the weeds.
I kind of want to, this has nothing to do with that. Well, yeah, it does. It has to do with microplastics. There's somebody in the audience that's a fellow tenant who is the most well-known person I know, most well-read person I know about the toxicity of microplastics in our seafood supply chain and why it's not necessarily a good thing to go wild anymore, to eat wild seafood. So I'm going to ask you a question and say if you might say a couple words, because every time you open your mouth about seafood and plastics, I learn something. So I think the people here might appreciate it. James from Seatopia. Is that cool?
Yeah.
All right.
And then that'll be our last question.
Yeah. Then we're gonna go over to Rye's space and see what he's got going on.
Yeah, James is a freaking, he's my neighbor. He ordered a surfboard too.
What's up, guys? It's definitely not my research, but UC Davis did a study where they went all up and down the coast collecting samples of wild-caught seafood in multiple regions, actually, and they found microplastics in 25% of the seafood that was available at grocery stores all over. And yeah, microtoxins of plastics, petroleum-based plastics, are not healthy for us. It's been associated with a lot of neurological issues. And it's also worth noting that it's not just plastic trash, it's also our clothing. If you're wearing clothing that has any sort of poly-based fiber, those poly-based fibers, when you put it in your washer and dryer, unless you're using a special filter, go right into the ocean. So yeah, unfortunately it's in the oceans as well, and it also has to do with our clothing. If you're not wearing a actual cotton-based clothing, if it's any sort of polyester, poly something, that is breaking down in your washer and dryer and going into the food system and bioaccumulating into our food system. But there's alternatives.
Thanks, James.
Okay, thank you. With all the questions, our panelists are going to be available if you want to ask them any questions. We're going to be inviting, Ryan's going to be inviting everybody to his area. Do you want to talk a little bit about what they can see on that side?
Yes, ma'am. Right down this little corridor, follow the green, not green, I'm colorblind, the blue. Everything's blue. You'll see these really colorful stairs that match my shirt and match my hat. Like
he's on brand.
Aqua blue and not pink, but we're going to talk about the ecos and what I'm doing and how you can support. You can literally scan some stuff, figure out what you want. We're going to do some sustainable live screen printing. I'm not doing live surfboard glassing because that'll take too long, but I'm going to show you a bunch of the products that have ocean-bound plastic that we collected and used, and we're going to hang out, and it's going to be fun. Yeah.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you to Haley and Ryan for putting such a great panel together. Thank you, Bodhi, Angela, Nate, all for coming. We really appreciate you all being here. Thank you to all of our exhibitors that continue to support us and continue to show up. And thank you all for being here again. We're so happy for you to join us, and we hope to see you again in the next one. Thank you. Oh, we have...
I wanted to comment on some new technologies that are taking place right down here on our oceanfront on the subject of reef building. There is a reef that has just been completed. Maybe the organizations here are aware of it, but I think the plan or the theory behind it in building this reef, which is located about a mile north of the Royal Palms, is in an area of below the very steep cliffs that are in that area. They built a reef that took about a month to build with large rocks brought out by barges. It was a big project, and this is to not to build a breakwater, but to have a controlled height of the reef, and I'm assuming to control the breaking of waves to not do damage on shoreline cliffs. And so it's a science to have reefs control wave breaking, and I think in the area of education, this science of reefs and their height, and when like along the coast here, there's a lot of kelp beds that do control the big waves, but this particular area that they built the reef is no growth of kelp, and so I don't know the science of it, but I believe the reef is 20 feet below or 10 feet below the surface of the water. And I think it's an interesting science in the area of education with this organization, a field that was very interesting.
And your name?
Don Black.
Oh, Don Black is here if anybody has more questions on reefs. But yes, thank you all for coming. We're going to invite you to talk to our exhibitors and to go down over to Ryan's area from screen printing. Thank you.